Thank you for tuning in to the NC Chamber's 6th episode of our podcast, Relaunching North Carolina, Perspectives from NC Business Leaders. The goal of this series is to make sure we're capturing and amplifying the voice of the business community as we move forward with reopening our state's economy and getting folks back to work. Today, we're honored to have with us Sherri Thomas, Chief Human Resources and Organizational Development Officer at Truliant. Sherri joined Truliant in 2010 and has more than 25 years of experience managing operations and human resources at large and mid-sized institutions. She provides senior leadership for employee relations, compensation, benefits, payroll, recruiting, and organizational development, which includes employee training and skill development. Her role encompasses responsibility for community affairs, community engagement and outreach, state and local government affairs, and Truliant at Work, the credit union's B2B workplace benefits program. Sherri holds an MBA from Elon University and a bachelor's degree in accounting from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. She also holds the Senior Professional in Human Resources designation, the highest professional certification within the human resource field. Sherri, thanks so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I know it's definitely a busy time for your industry, but before we dive into the business questions, I wanted to hear you in your own words just talk about what your ties to the North Carolina business community are.
Well, Truliant is headquartered in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we are a $3 billion credit union that was founded in 1952. And currently we have more than 258,000 member owners in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia combined. We're the third largest credit union in North Carolina, and we started as a credit union for Western Electric.
Okay.
We have about 32 branches spread out between those three states. And in a time when many financial institutions have downsized the number of locations that they have available, we've done the opposite. We've grown steadily over the last few years. In particular, we added 10 branches in Charlotte between 2013 and 2017. And we've also infilled several in the Triad area since then. And I was actually talking to somebody just last night, and she said, it seems to me like Truliant is everywhere. I said, well, that's the goal.
Yeah. That's a great goal.
That's exactly what we'd like to hear. So I was pretty excited to hear that. But, a lot of folks don't know that we also have dedicated commercial lending offices in Charlotte and Greensboro because we help consumers as well as business owners as well. We have over 700 employees, and through all of this, we've become more and more immersed in the communities that we serve through programs like TrueLine at Work, which is our workplace benefits program, and through volunteering, sponsorships, and other civic endeavors.
Yeah, I was actually doing some reading up on those things just yesterday, and I'd love to chat about those later too. So we'll definitely come back to that.
Okay, sounds good.
Of course, this podcast is about COVID-19 and its impact on businesses and our state as a whole. And again, we'll get to the business part in just a second, but has COVID-19 impacted you personally in any way? I mean, I know a lot of us have either known somebody who has been diagnosed, or they know somebody, or God forbid, they've lost a loved one or they've lost a job. Even if it's just, being able to reach out and hug someone that means a lot to you. We've lost that ability. So how would you describe the impact of this pandemic on you personally?
I've been fortunate that I haven't had anyone who has been diagnosed. Now, I have several family members who believe that before we knew what it was, that's probably what this situation was towards the latter part of last year.
Mm-hmm.
But, I have a couple of high-risk situations in my household between my spouse and my child. And one of the things that I think COVID-19 has done, because of those underlying health conditions that could complicate any coronavirus diagnosis, it has made us take our health a lot more seriously.
Right.
making sure that we manage those conditions in a much more aggressive way than we have before. And so as a result of that, we're doing more things like taking walks together and spending some quality time together that honestly we haven't had the time to do.
Yeah.
And because we are, quote unquote, housebounds and family bounds, we're doing those things together, and we're, exploring the outdoors, and we found some great new trails, and that has allowed us to, walk and physically be a little bit more fit. And the thing that I love the most about it is it allows us to spend more quality time together as a family. And the one thing I think COVID also has done is just force people to kind of slow down and be more intentional about how they spend their time and who they spend their time with. And so that piece of it has been nice.
I think, a lot of people are saying what you're saying, and it definitely is a blessing, of course, to not have been physically impacted in a negative way by COVID. And what's kind of ironic about it, and you just pointed this out, is that at a time when we have to socially distance ourselves from maybe coworkers or more distant relatives, for a lot of families, it's actually brought them closer. So it's really cool to hear you describe that in your own words. And you're not the first person who has said that. So definitely a silver lining there. I would say, for sure. So thank you for sharing that. You're an executive at Truliant and you kind of have your finger on the pulse of the financial services industry in your position, especially when it comes to all things human resources and organizational development. How would you describe the impact of this pandemic on Truliant, and maybe even in a larger way, the financial services industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that I think it has allowed us to do is move a little faster with some initiatives that we wanted to put into place. So there's some things that we had been thinking about doing that were for the betterment really of our company and for our employees that we were able to just go ahead and implement. And I'll give you a couple of examples.
Sure.
One, we had a small group of employees that were working from home, but it wasn't the majority of our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in order for us to be competitive in the environment of requiring talent in the future, we've got to be able to have some strategies like that in place so that, no matter where folks are, they are still able to be great, productive employees for us and help us take care of some initiatives, from where they would like to work best, be that, a different location other than headquarters, or be that at home part-time or all the time, whatever the case might be. So I would say those types of things, it helped us with some recruiting strategies that will help us, I think, in the long run.
Yeah.
As well as really be able to retain, employees that we have, because there are many employees who have different situations where they would like to be able to work from home. And honestly, we just didn't have the technology and the capability to do it in a large scale as conveniently as we are today, which, that's the story with most companies. So I think it helped push us a little bit further down the path with that. So I'm excited about that. And then the second piece of that, you mentioned some of the work that we do in the community, and I talked a little bit about TrueLine at Work as well, our partnership with other companies to provide the benefit of being a member of TrueLine to their employees. We're doing all of those educational seminars via the web through Zoom or WebEx, and we're able to still provide people financial literacy. We're still able to open up memberships. We're still able to help people obtain credit. We're still able to help people take care of their families and put things in place that they need to take care of their families via, through video conferencing, which we really didn't do a lot of before. And so those types of things, I think, are some good strategies that it has helped us push out to reach more people where they are.
That's great. I was actually going to ask you directly about that financial literacy piece, because I know that that's a big part of the community give back that Truliant focuses on. So it's really great to hear that you've been able to continue doing that. Do you feel like the hunger for it and the participation for it are about the same as they ever were, or have those like the number of people that participate, has that like declined recently? What are you seeing?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. Of course, I wouldn't say that we do it in the same numbers that we were able to do face to face. But I would also tell you that I think we're reaching a group of people that we wouldn't have before.
I bet.
And so that piece of it has been really, really nice as well. And of course, with the times, people need us a little bit more. And like I said, with the availability of us being able to do things, via video conference or over the telephone, instead of people aren't necessarily comfortable coming out or having us come on site, at their companies.
Sure.
It still allows us to have those conversations with more people and a different group of people than we may have in the past. So yes, I think we've lost some ability to speak to as many individuals as we would have if I was able to go on site, and do a seminar, for a couple of hundred people.
Sure.
Out there. But I think the individualized attention that I'm able to give people, they get more communication about those options being available for them, and they feel more comfortable taking advantage of that.
I love that. That's great to hear. With regard to our state's response to COVID, it's obviously really difficult to navigate an unparalleled situation. But from your view, would you like to see anything change in our state's response to the situation, or how would you evaluate that?
I think that the piece of that I'd say I'd probably address is just making sure that the partisanship is pulled out of the crisis. And everybody recognizes that we're all in this together. We all have to feel safe before any return to normal is possible, and that we need to agree on certain practices to ensure the safety of everyone to help us manage and ultimately come out of the crisis together and come out of the crisis stronger.
Those are such wise words. And again, you're not the first to say that. I think most businesses are doing a great job making people their priority. And if everyone did the same, I think that would be a great way to springboard us back into some realm of normalcy, more so than what we're seeing now. So yeah, great thoughts there. I couldn't agree with you more. You're someone who has had more than 25 years of experience managing operations and human resources at organizations large and small. So I'm sure that you've got some advice built up that you could offer others who are maybe not as veteran when it comes to a managerial role in the HR space and are really struggling right now with things like employee morale or, communication efforts. What would you say to maybe a novice in your HR space type of role who is really kind of wondering how to continue to conduct business right now?
Well, I will tell you, with this pandemic, I think we're all novices right now.
Great point.
It's a new way of leading for us all. But I will tell you, there are some things that I do believe are constants when there is a crisis, when people feel that their lives are in jeopardy, when they feel like their loved ones' lives could be in jeopardy, when they are stressed financially, because a lot of companies have had to make decisions that have impacted household incomes and people's, ability to provide for their families. There's some constants that come with that, and mental health is one of them. And I think that it's as much of a challenge as it is for business leaders to navigate what's happening with them meeting goals and objectives and things of that nature for the business and their financial responsibility to their organizations. Their employees are having to make those same decisions and put those same thought processes in place to help manage their families and their lives. And so it's really important that you try and have decisions that make people feel like they're being prioritized, make them feel like their safety and their well-being physically and emotionally is of utmost importance to an organization. And you have to make sure that you work together as an organization to better understand the impact the crisis is having on people every day and address their concerns and offer solutions. In the mental health area, we consistently remind employees that we have resources available to them. Many people are struggling with depression as a result of being quarantined in the state of the world right now. And to not address that or have resources that you can put into place for your employees, I think is something that I would say would be a big thing that could be a miss for you as an organization. So we believe in the importance of helping people stay connected. And like I said, we went from having a few people work from home to having a large portion of our folks work from home. And although some people love working from home, there are some people who really miss that face-to-face.
Sure, it's not for everybody. Yeah.
It's not for everybody. And people were kind of pushed into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we try to make sure that we have things in place. Several managers have like virtual lunches and get together for their teams that aren't even work related. Just, let's just kind of shoot the breeze. I know they've had things like, let's meet your quarantine buddies. And I remember one manager telling me that they never really met all the children of one of their employees, but they met them now.
Oh, that's great.
Situation, because the children are at home, and so they've at least said hi on the Zoom calls or whatever the case might be. And so it's important that you still look for activities that allow people to stay engaged. We've done some social walls, we've done chats, we've just done a variety of different things just to make sure that people feel connected to each other and the organization. Todd Hall, who's our president and CEO, he's been giving bi-weekly video messages throughout the course of the pandemic, just making sure people know what actions the company is taking, what our next steps are, because we want to make sure that people don't feel like they're just out there by themselves and that they're not still a part of a greater family.
You have given so many great resources. I would love to connect with you after this podcast, actually, and get some examples of some of the things that you've mentioned, because I think that our larger business community could really learn from what you're doing at Truliant to make sure that the mental health of your employees still, is still doing well. Because you're right, mental health is sort of that cornerstone of overall wellness, and to ignore that would be a really large mistake. So thank you for sharing all that. And again, I'll pick your brain after this too. So I'll come find you. But you already spoke to employee morale and the ways that you can keep that as high as you can in the face of a pandemic like this. You talked about making sure that employees feel safe, because when they feel safe, they feel valued. And of course, that plays into employee morale as well. Is there anything that you didn't just cover that you're also doing at Truliant to make sure that your employee morale is as high as it can be during a time like this?
The one other thing I would add is, we're a credit union. And we are founded on helping people. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do. And so people who come to work for Truliant, that's what you're saying, you want to be a part of, and that's what you like to do. And so a part of the employee engagement piece is they like to know that we're still doing things out in the community. They like to know that we're still, they feel proud, of all the community engagement efforts that we get to say, yes, that's my company. Truliant did that, and that's where I work, and I'm proud to do that. And we started in April an initiative called People Helping People, and it really was a three-pronged approach. It was an initiative that many restaurants, of course, were closed and were unable to have any in-lobby service, so they were relying on drive-thrus or either takeout. And so we partnered with local restaurants in each of our communities so that we could give back to these restaurants and hopefully try and keep those folks in business. And so we did two things with those restaurants. We determined each month a group of essential workers that we wanted to provide lunches to, and these restaurants all catered those lunches for us.
Wow, what a fantastic idea.
And then we also fed our employees that were on site. Because again, working from home folks, some of them love it. And then there's some people, of course, who are still in the building. They're coming in every day.
Yeah.
So we don't have healthcare workers that are essential workers, but financial services workers are still considered essential workers because people need to be able, to take care of their financial lives as well. Mm-hmm. And so we provided lunches for all of our employees, all of our frontline employees that were coming into the buildings each day, either in the branches or either the headquarters. And so in April, we honored the essential healthcare workers that were working at two of the testing sites, one in Kernersville, North Carolina, one in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We provided lunches for those folks. And then in May, we honored police folks that were in the geographical footprint in the triad. So that's from Winston down to Burlington, over to Asheboro and High Point, and everything kind of in between. And then this month in June, we honored firefighters that are in Charlotte that would be the first ones to respond to our branch location. So that's been part of our People Helping People initiative from April into now, that we were able to honor our employees and help keep them engaged, as well as give back to the community during that time.
And my goodness, you talk about an initiative that has an impact in so many different ways. I mean, not only are you celebrating frontline workers and essential workers, but you're also showing your employees that you care, and you're also helping one of the hardest hit industries from this crisis. I just think that's really brilliant. And kudos to Truliant for implementing that. What has encouraged you, if anything? Encouraged might not even be the right word, but if you had to pull a silver lining out of this mess that we're in, what would it be?
Seeing the leadership that's emerged from this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
People have just been a real inspiration with the sense of community, the sense of helping, the sense of coming together, just to get it done. We've had people just roll up their sleeves and become better leaders through this. No one, like I said earlier, has led through this type of crisis before. And it's always easy to lead when things are good, right?
Sure.
But it's a lot harder when times aren't good, and a strong foundation is able to kind of work through that together. And that's exactly what I feel like, our teams have done. We've shifted our resources. We've worked through multiple challenges, deadlines, system issues, a new way of doing business.
Right.
How our employees are managing their own lives and families, and the pressures that they have at home as well. And so it just kind of all compounds. And, I can't tell you how many times people are doing things that aren't, quote unquote, in their area of responsibility, but nobody ever says, that's not for me to do. That's for somebody else to do, or call the person. Everybody's just figuring out, how to get it done. And that has just been really refreshing, and very just solidifies. I knew we were a family, but we're a very functional family.
There you go. There is no diss in there. It is a functional family. I know that just based on all of what we've talked about so far, that your organization is completely committed to making people the priority during a time like this. But for some industries that are facing more of a financial hit and are struggling a little bit more than perhaps like the financial services industry right now, what would you say to them about some ways that they can make their people a priority in light of a financial hit from this crisis?
Yeah, when you start talking about healthcare and people living and dying, being what's the center of people's concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just changes how, if you weren't making decisions that were based on your people before, I think you got to start doing it now.
I'd say, yeah.
And, we've always been a people-based organization. Our philosophy from the start, we hit it early hard. And I remember talking to somebody else. They wanted me to come in and speak at a particular event, and this was early in March, and I was like, it wasn't until May, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to make that. And they were like, well, how do you know that now? We don't even know what's going to happen. I said, no, we don't. But what I do know is, we're not going to send our folks out until we know how this is going to work out.
Right.
That. And so we made decisions early on of, not having people travel in the name of Truliant, and not, putting them in situations where they may be unsafe. There wasn't any return on that event that we felt outweighed our employees' safety, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
And so those are the types of decisions, that we had to make. And so early on, we said everyone that can work from home works from home. This wasn't a time of, I'm not sure, that Sherri's probably best suited for working from home. Sherri is safest working from home. If she has the ability to work from home, then we're sending Sherri home to work from home.
Right.
And so we made some of those decisions early on that we knew would present their own set of challenges, but we shifted gears immediately to try and deal with those types of those growing pains. We know we have a major role to play in helping households and businesses reignite the economy. We're getting ready to begin piloting reopening in 4 of our branches. We think it's important that businesses reopen in a controlled way so that we can avoid mistakes that could result in future closures. But we want to do that smart, and we want to do it as safely as possible and make sure that we have some learnings before we just, go full throttle on everything. So we're just as eager as everyone else is to get back to business as usual, but it's imperative that we do it responsibly. Organizations like ours, we've had to become very well versed in so many areas that we weren't before. And we just want to make sure that as a people-based organization that we make those decisions thoughtfully.
Absolutely. You've given so much great advice to our audience. Before we wrap up today, is there anything else or any final thoughts that you would like to leave our audience with?
No, like I said before, this is a different time for all of us to lead through. But I do believe if you make your decisions based upon your people, I think that everything else, as always, when you do the right thing, right things will follow.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sherri Thomas, Chief Human Resources and Organizational Development Officer at Truliant. Sherri, thank you so much for joining us today.